we're just going to kind of go through. So the goal is we're not going to take too long on this Zoom meeting. It's just basically we're going to kind of help you understand a few things and then challenge you to do something very specific with your team, which I believe will help you guys progress a little bit more throughout the season, right? From here on out. So up to this point, now you've gotten to know each other a little bit better as teammates. So I think everybody's trying to figure out, or they're over figuring out how everybody is, probably figuring out roles on your teams. All those things are great, right? The first part of the season, we always want to connect. We want to make sure we get to know everybody, and we want to make sure everybody feels like they have a place on the team. And now 100%, we need to shift to the team. And so here's the interesting part, okay, is when we are talking about all the team stuff, we've got to start deciding, are we where we want to be right now? Are we finishing the way we want to in tournaments? Are we playing the way we want to play throughout the entire set? Are things happening the way that we want them to happen? And a lot of times what we find is teams can be divided on this. Some people feel like everything is going well, and there will be other people who feel like maybe things aren't going quite as well. The thing that we need you guys to do is to get together as a team, and you need to sit down and you need to evaluate, hey guys, here's where we are today. Here's where we are. And be brutally honest. I think one of the hardest things is to be brutally honest with ourselves about where we are. This doesn't mean I want you to call people out and say, you're here and I'm here. What I want you to do is talk about it as a team. Where is our team today? I want you to think of something, right? All improvement starts with the truth. That's a very important thing that you need to recognize. So once you recognize that what the truth is, where you are today, you can decide where you guys want to go as a team. And so that's a very important thing I want you to get in your head. Okay? It all starts with the truth. So that means as a team, you guys need to sit down and evaluate. Where are we? And an easy way to evaluate is to break down the skill sets. Let's start with our effort at practice. Are we giving the type of effort at practice that is helping us? Right? Are we connecting as teammates in a way that's helping us? Are we serving in a way that's helping us? Are we passing in a way that's helping us? Are we spiking in a way that's helping us? Are we setting in a way that's helping us? Are we blocking in a way that's helping us? Are we digging in a way that's helping us? We go through it all. What is going to make the biggest impact for us moving forward? This is something I want you to do without your coach there, okay? Because most of the time, what happens is when you get your coach there and you get your coach, in their opinion, they kind of run the practice, they run the evaluation, and then your thoughts maybe aren't taken into as much consideration as they need to be taken into. And so I want you guys to be able to have complete control over your feelings of where you are. Does that make sense? Okay. And so this is going to have to happen. I don't know, maybe you plan to show up 45 minutes before practice, 45 minutes, you stay 45 minutes after a practice, but everybody needs to be there. Everybody needs to have an opportunity to speak their mind a little bit about what they think. Now, here's what I've witnessed. Okay. There's a really smart guy, Urban Meyer, right? And he was the coach of the Florida Gators at Ohio State. He was the coach at Utah, football coach. And I think we covered this last time, to be honest with you. And I'm going to remind you, he has a 10-80-10 principle. 10% of the athletes in his programs, he said, were overachievers. They needed no motivation to go do extra reps. They needed nothing like that to happen, okay? 80% did the bare minimum, and then you had the other 10% who were actively rebellious. And so what he found was it was a huge fight between the top 10% and those rebellious 10%, right? They were both recruiting from the 80%. And so what we need to find out on each team, because there's a lot of people, a lot of times they'll come up to me and they'll say, I'm the only one that's motivated. I'm working harder than everyone else. Every team's going to have somebody like that who's probably putting in a little bit more effort. And if you're one of those people who's putting in a little bit more effort, this gives you an opportunity to recruit kids to come do what you're doing, right? That's the only way that teams are going to progress and get a little bit better, is to get more people on the same page. And we would hope as captains, you guys are the ones that are establishing those standards. Okay. So here again, we're going to sit down with our teams and talk about where we are and where do we want to go from here. Okay. That's number one. Number two, we're going to start figuring out what is the work required to get there. That's a very, very important question, right? Because just saying it, we want to get to somewhere, that's an easy thing to say, but to make it happen, you've got to outline what the work is. Is that extra reps before practice? Is that extra reps after practice? Is that some stuff that you can do at home? What is the actual work required to get you to where you want to be from where you are today? And then you need commitments from people to actually show up and do it. That's hard. People saying, I want to go somewhere, that's easy. People committing to get on the ride and do the journey with you, that is more complicated. Sometimes you're going to have to help each other, bug each other, right? Have accountability partners. Hey, I'm showing up. Do I need to come pick you up? Or whatever the case is, right? So that's one of the things that I really want to emphasize, that in order to get to that place, you need to outline the work. Be very specific on the details of what you're going to do. It's not going to happen for everybody unless you start having some accountability with each other. That means people checking in. Did you get it done? Are you doing this? Or you're just doing it together. If you're doing it together, you're showing up at the gym, it makes it a whole lot easier. A lot of times we wait for coaches to initiate these types of things. I want you to initiate these types of things. Okay. I want you to initiate. As some of the teams that I coach will tell you, we talk about maturity. Maturity is doing your duty without having to be supervised. That's a very tough thing, right? It's easy to try hard when the right people are watching, but are you doing what you're supposed to be doing to get to where you want to be on your own? And is everyone else around you doing the same thing? And if they're not, this is the opportunity for you guys all to grasp that concept of maturity. I'm going to say that again. Maturity is doing your duty without having to be supervised. That's a pretty important concept that everybody needs to internalize a little bit more, okay? Third, once you identify where you are, where you want to go, the work required to get there, now you guys have to decide, what is the attitude required to do the work? Now, here's what's interesting about that. The work is not going to go away. It's our attitude towards how we feel about the work, which determines whether we do it or not, right? Think about this. In anything that we do, right? If you like what you're doing, you will do more of it. If you don't like what you're doing, you're not going to do very much. So that's the thing that you have to start figuring out. What is the attitude? How do I need to make an attitude adjustment about doing this specific work, right? And altering our attitudes, having an attitude adjustment is hard because we feel the way that we feel. Let's be honest. Most of the time when you look at that mountain, maybe you're not somebody who's getting a ton of play time. You're like, well, why would I put in all this work? There's no payoff, right? These are sometimes you'll be faced with these. If that's not you, you're going to face somebody with maybe that attitude. So the question is, how do we get people bought in to do the work when there's maybe not a direct payoff like that? How do we get people to put the team in front of their personal needs? Because a lot of times we see it, right? There'll be people around you that are only in if it benefits them personally in some kind of playtime type manner, right? That happens a lot. And as soon as they feel like they're not maybe involved in that, they're out. And we can't have that. We need every single person to be bought in. So what we start talking about is, are we conditionally bought in to what we as a team are trying to do, or are we unconditionally bought in? Let me give you the difference between the two. Conditionally bought in athlete means I will only do it if it meets my needs. An unconditionally athlete does it no matter what, no matter the conditions. they're going to do the work because they're bought into the bigger picture. Right. And I think I saw a pretty interesting meme the other day. I think that's what you call them, right? Where it talks about if you think practice is boring, you know, what do you think sitting on the bench is? Stuff like that. And, you know, I don't know what the dynamic of your team and with your coaches are, right? Maybe your coaches have a more of a everybody plays mentality, give everybody a chance mentality. And maybe some of your coaches are more cutthroat and saying only the people who deserve to play will play, right? That could be the case. Okay. What are you guys laughing at? I'm going to kill you. T, hide in your face in the phone. Katie, is that Hayden with you? Or is that Katie with you? No, it's Katie. Yep. All right. Sorry. Anyway. Okay. So we've got to figure this out. We've got to figure this out. What kind of dynamic do we have? How do we get everyone to buy in regardless of their role? Now, you as captains, your job is to help include people, make them feel a part of it. But let's be real, at the end of the day, this is going to take a lot of work, and a lot of that work is practice. Sometimes practice is not glorious. Sometimes practice is just a lot of time doing the same repetitive things the same way over and over and over and over and over and over and over again until it becomes subconscious, to where it becomes a habit that we don't have to think. It's a reflex. That's the whole goal, right? But we need everyone doing that. A few years ago, I'm going to give you a story. A few years ago at Lone Peak, we had 2 All-Americans as our outsides. Okay, we had Maddie Robinson. If you guys know who Maddie is, she's playing at the U. And then we had a girl named Tasia Pharma who's playing at Santa Barbara. Okay. And there was a girl named Mikkel Dahl, and she was our third outside, and she was pretty good. Okay. But she was playing behind Maddie and Tasia. Can you imagine being the third outside behind those two? Again, both All-Americans, high school All-Americans, very, very good. Tasia, her senior year, was Miss Volleyball and Gatorade Player of the Year, and, you know, got all the accolades. You know, Maddie was the 6A and 5A MVP, and, you know what I mean? So these kids are really good. So anyway, we go to practice, and Maddie was a very hard worker. Nobody had to ask Maddie to work hard. Tasia wanted to be as good as Maddie, so Maddie kind of took her under her wing, and I said, Tasia, you need to do what Maddie's doing. So Tasia worked extremely hard, started doing things the way Maddie did. Mikkel was a very hard worker, and she wanted to push those guys. So here's what would happen. Is Maddie would kind of set a standard. Tasia would almost get there. Mikkel would be right behind Tasia. And that's where we started in the beginning of the year. And then what would happen is Mikkel would work really hard, get kind of close to Tasia. And then Tasia was like, no way, would work even harder, would up her level. She'd get kind of close to Maddie. Maddie would say, no way. Maddie would up her level. And so all of a sudden, what we found was everybody was pushing everyone one step higher. And I talked to Mikkel one day, because what a hard thing to be behind those two. And even though when we statted it out, her stats were good. She was not hurting the team. She was helping the team. She just wasn't helping the team as much as Tasia or Maddie. And so what happened was she didn't get quite as much play time. We'd get her in when we could, but in important matches and tough matches, Tasia and Maddie were the girls. Okay. So I pulled Mikkel aside and I said, I'm sorry. How are you doing with all of this? And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, it must be really tough. And she's like, look, I'm in the gym with 2 All-Americans. My whole goal was to find out, how good am I? How good can I become? And she's like, and I'm competing with these guys. Even though they're finishing ahead of me, I'm competing with them. And when I go in and I get my opportunities, I'm not hurting the team. It was like the most beautiful attitude of anybody I've ever seen on a team. She was very selfless. Now, here's what was even more cool is anytime I subbed Mikkel in for Tasia or for Maddie, they were like jumping for joy that Mikkel was going in the match. We always had a rule. The girls on the floor were playing for the girls on the sideline. They had to work hard enough that we could get those girls in. That's always been our motto. Work hard enough to get the girls who are not playing in the game. If you can get them in the game, you did your job. And when Mikkel would get in the game, those guys were super excited. Anytime Mikkel did anything good, what do you think was happening? Those guys were jumping up and down on the sidelines for her. It was one of the most selfless, beautiful things I think I've seen as a coach. I was very, very proud of all three of them, right? And that was one of our teams that had just a great dynamic the whole entire time. Notwithstanding, Mikkel didn't play as much and probably didn't contribute as much as the other two. But that's kind of what we're talking about with our teams, is it required a lot of work to push each other to get where we need to be. Okay, so that's where we are, guys. Is I need you to sit down with your team and again, recap. Be honest where you are today. Be honest where you want to go. What is the work required to get there? Be specific on what you're going to do. And then you need to be specific about what is the attitude required to get that work done. Once you have done that, your goal is to meet with your coach. Okay. And I want you to outline, say, coach, here is where we are. Here's where we want to go. Here's what we think it's going to take to get there. Here's the attitude we've agreed to have to do this. We want you to help us. We want you to get on board with us. There would be no greater moment for a coach than when a group of athletes comes and talks to them in this manner, right? Because now you're empowering the coach to help you guys get to where you want to be. And then you guys as athletes, as teams, can help your parents get on board and saying, hey, this is what we are going to do. This is what we want to do. And this is the support that you can offer us in order to make this happen. When these things align like that, that is when teams come together and that is when special things happen. Now, I'm not going to say that everyone is going to win a major championship or whatever is going to happen from that, but I guarantee your team will get closer. You'll have a better experience with each other. Your practices will become more intense and you will improve. You will grow. And that's what the whole concept of this is. We want to get to a point where we are growing. Now, these meetings do not happen on their own. It takes the captains to set these meetings up. And that is why I'm encouraging you and challenging you to do this. All right. So now what I would like from you, okay, what I'd like from you is after you do this, okay, or actually what I'd like from you first is I want you to tell me, text me when you're going to do this, okay, so I can follow up with you. And then after you do this, right, I need you to give me an outline as well. Tell me what you guys are going to do so I can help by following up with your coach, making sure that somebody is holding your coach to this a little bit as well. So if you guys can help me with this, I can help you with your coaches. So that's a pretty simple thing. And I promise you it's going to be very impactful. Now that we're connecting and now that we've gotten along, I think we're at a place where the truth is okay and it's all right. And in some cases, there might be some hard truths to have to deal with. All right. I was talking with some players the other day, you know who you are. And it was, they decided it was time for a little bit of a let's be come to Jesus moment, so to speak. And that's okay. I think it's good to have those moments. All right. Any questions? I promise we'd keep this short and sweet, but impactful. Any questions?
Yes, my hand is raised on the thing.
Oh my gosh. It's like all dark. I can't see you, but go ahead.
Oh. Okay, anyways. So referring to like the attitude required.
Yes.
Does that include like establishing the standards thing that you were talking about?
Yeah. I think standards are behaviors, right? Are things that behaviors that you're doing. So those are actions. And I think part of that is establishing how do you have to feel about doing the action? You know what I mean? It's like a standard would be like, I come home and I do the dishes. That would be a good standard, right? I come home and I do the dishes every day. But having a good attitude while doing the dishes is probably a separate thing. It's a little bit harder. So what you guys all want to start establishing is saying, I'm going to do the dishes with a good attitude. I'm going to want to do the dishes. I know you're looking at me saying nobody wants to do the dishes. But when you have a reason, a good enough reason to do it, it changes your attitude. And that's where perspective comes in. The fastest way to change our feelings is to see it from a different perspective, right? If there's a good enough reason to wash those dishes, what happens, right? It changes your attitude towards it. Not to be too much of a nerd, but like going back to the Karate Kid days, right? Mr. Miyagi was making Danielson do all the crappy chores, painting the fence, washing the car. But when Danielson realized that all that was teaching him karate, changed his attitude very quickly. He was more willing to do all that work. Same kind of deal. Does that answer your question? All right. I saw the thumbs up. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions?
Wait, so if you change your perspective of how you see things, then your attitude will change.
Oh yeah. Okay. So let me give you an example. Has anyone ever been late to practice and it annoyed you?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what if you found out that their dog ran away, which is like a really important member of their family, and it was devastating, and they were late because their dog ran away and they were panicked and crying? Would that make you accept the fact that they were late to practice a little easier?
Yeah.
There it is. You know what I mean? There's always a reason. I mean, that's the thing, is we perceive things from our perceptions, right? We think a certain way always. And we need to know the truth, because once we understand where somebody else is coming from, it could change the way we feel. When we understand what the work is going to do for us, it can change the way we feel about it very dramatically, right? And so that's what's good when you have a group of people coming together on a team, talking about it and gaining different perspectives about things. It can help you guys adopt a better attitude towards each other and towards the work. And that's what I mean by that. So hopefully that makes sense. Great question. Anyone else?
So after we get this all done, then we follow up with you, right?
Yeah, I'd love for you to do that. That way I can help you. Honestly, the only reason I'm saying that is so I can help you. So I can help you and guide you and be a part of this with you and your teams. I want to help. But I know that me reaching out to you and nagging you and doing all that stuff is not the best way. Nobody likes to be nagged, and nor do I want to be a babysitter for this stuff. I'm here to be a helpful person if you are looking for that. And I know sometimes, like with coaches, it's hard to approach them, or we feel like we don't have the relationship. Whereas if you guys include me in this and show me your plan, I can go to your coach and help maybe change their perspective on some things and be like, holy cow, how amazing is it that your team came up with these things? How can I help you implement this so your team can have a better experience? Does that make sense? So really all I'm doing is offering my help to you. Anyone else? I'm not sure.
Hey. Hannah Larson.
All right. Hannah, if you're trying to talk,
Can you hear me?
you're not coming through very well. Try to maybe talk again. You there?
Can you hear me?
A little bit better now. All right. What's your question?
Hello?
Yep.
Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yes.
Can you hear me? Bossa. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you. Yep.
Okay, so we kind of did something similar to what you said to do with like the meeting with our teams. We did it last practice, which was on Tuesday, I believe.
Okay.
But so we met with our team and we were like really frustrated with our tournament, and so we had like an anonymous like heart to heart of how everyone felt and stuff. And so we're gonna be like working on like making everyone feel happy and not working on like focusing on all the bad plays we do instead of focusing on the good plays we do.
Yeah.
And so I was just wondering like if there's like a good way to go about that.
Yeah. So let me help you guys understand. So volleyball is about angles and force. That's it. You want to be good at volleyball, you have to be good at creating angles and using the right amount of force behind those angles. That's how the whole game is. So when we get down to it, what we realize is volleyball is a game of math. Math is a game of facts. Because a lot of times we get caught up in the feelings of everything. And we don't want to get caught up in the feelings of everything, right? Because your feelings can betray you. It's like walking into a room, everybody gets quiet. Maybe you feel like everybody was talking about you, but that might not be the reality. That might not be the facts. Okay. The facts are if you hit a ball here with this angle and make the ball spin, the ball goes there. That's it. So really what you're trying to talk about is saying that I want to spend my entire time with my team understanding what is the math that we are trying to do to help us be successful. So when you're talking about getting over being happy or sad or whatever, we don't need to do that, right? A play is not good or bad. It just is what it is, right? It's a game of, it was either an angle that worked relative to what you want, or it was an angle that didn't work relative to what you want. We don't have to feel emotion based on it. The irony of this is like, let's take spiking, for example. You're only going to get a kill maybe 40 to 50% of the time if you're on the high end, less than 20% of the time on the low end. So that means 8 out of 10 balls you hit, you're going to feel bad about. Why would we put our emotional state up for grabs for something that's not going to be successful 80% of the time, right? We don't want to do that. So what we do instead is we put 100% of our focus on the work. And the work is, we don't get a kill by thinking about getting a kill. We get a kill by timing the ball, getting aligned, and hitting the ball with the right contact. That's it. That's how things happen. And then if the ball goes to the right spot and the other team doesn't make a play, that's what gets a kill. You could do all the right stuff, right stuff, and the other team could block you, or the other team could dig you. That's just part of reality of playing volleyball. So when you guys get into what you're working on, if we want to get kind of away from all the emotional mumbo jumbo of what's happening, we focus on the math. Here are the angles, and they're very easy to predict, right? There's a spot on the ball that goes exactly to the spot on the court you want the ball to go to. And if we get our heads thinking about these things, it's very easy to be a lot more productive in practice. Most of the time, I'm going to be honest with you, we're not terribly productive because we're not thinking relative to what we are trying to do with angles and force. We're just not. We're thinking about outcomes. I need to get a kill. I need to get the serve over the net. I need to do this. I need to get a dig. Thinking about a dig doesn't get a dig to happen, right? Lining up with your hitter and getting square and watching their contact point and then you moving into it, that helps you get to a point of getting a dig. So hopefully that makes sense to you. So when you go through, you guys need to start talking about the math of the work that you're trying to do. If we want to get better at serving, what about serving do we need to get better at? Well, we need to get better at tossing the ball here, hitting the ball here to get the ball to go there, floating or whatever the case is. That's kind of a little bit more. Now, do you need to all be there to support each other and feel like you have each other's backs and to be patient with each other while you're going through the growing process? 100%. That's really important. Yes. But if you're going to move the needle in volleyball, we've got to start focusing on the math, right? And that's really what's important. So that's how I would spend my time moving forward in my meetings. Katie, did you raise your hand?
Yeah, did you see my little raised hand?
I see Katie Corelli raised hand. There you go. Okay.
Okay, anyways. So once we have said conversation and we're like setting standards or whatever, what do we do if like people don't want to like align with certain standards, even though that's like what aligns with like what we need to do to get the goal?
Sure. Here's the thing: is how many you've heard of the tipping point, right? The tipping point is when the majority signs on. So yeah, you're going to have, not everyone's going to be probably 100% on board, but what happens when the majority of kids are? When you win the majority, the others will follow, right? Or the standards will just win out. They just will. You know what I mean? So if other people don't want to buy into that, like I said, practice might be boring, but sitting on the bench is even more boring. And so I think that's sometimes what will happen. Does that make sense? So I think you have to get the majority to buy in. Once the majority buys in, the others will buy in or be left behind. Because what is the coach going to do? Let's just use logic here. If he sees that the majority of kids are working a certain way and he likes or she likes what they're seeing, right? They're going to praise those kids and think, man, I love these kids. The kids who are not buying in, they're going to address that with them. Hey, these guys are doing this. Why aren't you? You know, it'll naturally evolve and run its course, right? It just there has to be enough people. A majority has to be doing this for the rest to follow, and I promise you they will. And those who don't will remove themselves from the equation because it'll be really uncomfortable for them to be at practice and to be in those situations. And that's usually what happens. And if they're going to remove themselves from the equation, as hard as that is sometimes, it'll happen, right? And if they don't want to remove themselves from the equation, I think everybody wants to be on a team. What will happen is they'll buy in. They'll have to, right? Because it's the fork in the road. And so that's a good thing. And what happens when the fork in the road is standard based and value based and is moving your team in the direction that helps you get to where you want to be as a team, right? That's a great thing. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I would say. Anyone else? I love all these emojis. You guys are amazing. Any other questions? Yes? No? All right, I'm counting down from 10. And if nobody asks another question, we are going to conclude the Zoom meeting for tonight. I will send the recording to everyone. So if you want to remember what was talked about, you'll have that recording. I will put that out to everybody tomorrow.
If there is any.
I have a question.
Question, go.
What, like, I know we're not responsible for everything that goes on in that team, but like, there's like some girls who will like talk bad about each other, and then when they don't like talk to us, be like, "Oh, you're the captain. You need to say something," but like we don't really know what to do.
Okay, so sorry, you're really soft, but let me see if I understood. You're saying that what do you do if people on your team are talking bad about each other?
Yeah.
Yeah. And are you one of the people intercepting the bad news when somebody else is talking bad?
No, not necessarily. People will come up to me and like tell me that other people are talking bad on other people.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. That's a great question, right? And I know it happens a lot. Let's face it, you're teenage girls, and we tend to want to compare ourselves against other people, right? In order for ourselves to feel better and understand that's really what it's about. Is we have to feel like we're better than someone in order to feel good about ourselves at times. As crazy and as twisted as that sounds, you know it's the truth. And so what I tend to do if somebody is talking bad about somebody that I like or that is my teammate, I will listen and I will say back, so you don't like this person because of such and such and such and such, and let them confirm or deny, yes, that's absolutely true. And then I'll offer my perspective. Okay, I see what you're saying. My experience is I really like them. I think they're working hard. And then I'll offer some perspective, maybe to help them change their mind a little bit. You know, because a lot of times people don't realize that you might know something that they don't know. And sometimes people are going through some tough times and they're trying to compare themselves so they can feel better. But one of the best things you can do is help people realize, hey, look, that's my friend. I think they're great. I get where you're coming from. I'm sorry you feel that way. Here's my thought on the subject, and here's how I feel about them. Then they're not going to come to you to probably be that person anymore because they'll realize you're not feeding into it. Because what do people want? A commiseration club wants somebody to commiserate with. They want you to be like, oh, yeah, I know that girl is the worst, right? And that's what they're waiting for you to say. But if you don't feed into that, then they'll stop doing it. And if you get everybody to stop feeding into that kind of stuff, they won't do it. And that's why I'd probably address that in my team meetings and just say, hey, look, one of the standards is we don't bag on each other. How can we be a good team if we bag on each other all the time? So that's probably what I would do is address it in those terms. People are going to have concerns, and it's okay for them to voice concerns with somebody they feel safe with, but you don't have to buy into those concerns. You don't have to agree with those concerns. You can listen, that's fine. But again, I would say don't agree with it, because the moment you agree with it, you're enabling them to do more.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, anyone else? Counting down 10.
What if you see someone else being like rude to another like teammate or something?
Okay. So what do you think?
I think that you should probably talk to the person.
Yeah, I think so. Here's the thing. You see somebody being rude to somebody else, and then you being rude to that person for being rude, it doesn't really solve any issues. You know what I mean? What I think you do, when somebody is being rude to somebody else, you go up to the person who maybe got bagged on a little bit and you're like, hey, you okay? I know you're trying hard, and you reinforce them. And then you know what I mean? And so you build them up first, and then you go to the girl who maybe did that and be like, hey, are you okay? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I noticed that you were coming across as a little bit mean to or upset with so-and-so. Is everything going okay? Are you really upset with them, or is something else going on? You know what I mean? Most of the time, let's be real, people take out their frustrations of life outside of volleyball on people inside of volleyball. It's usually not about a missed dig. Maybe sometimes it is. Most of the time, it's not about that. It's about something going on in their personal life that is carrying over onto the volleyball court. And so I think you can be a good friend by monitoring, the person who got yelled at or whatever, who they were rude to. Make sure they're okay. Make sure they know that they have your support. And then again, go to the person who was rude and see if they're okay. Because chances are they maybe didn't even realize that they were freaking out or being rude. And then the other side of it is they might need somebody to talk to about it. And then what I would do is encourage, once they realize they're like, yeah, I guess that was mean, I would encourage them. You need to apologize, right? Help the person understand that it wasn't about them. Because let's face it, you guys tend to internalize and hold that in for a long time. We don't need to. What would be better to do is to make sure that it's okay to apologize. So that's how I would deal with that. And I think it would help because again, you'll probably realize that it had nothing to do with the actions of that one person. It probably had something to do with bad day at school, something is going on, right? And then you can help both sides by just observing and communicating appropriately. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, I've gotten to 9 twice. Anyone else?
So I've like gotten to like know all the girls on my team pretty well, except one of the girls I feel like she's kind of isolated. So I like always text her and like partner up with her at volleyball, but it's kind of hard. Like she just it seems like she's like unhappy, and I don't know how to like make her happy. And like I've tried all that I can.
Yeah.
Advice on that.
Yeah, no, that's so the isolated teammate. Katie, what do you do with the isolated teammate? We kind of dealt with that a little bit. So what do we do with the isolated teammate? Because that teammate doesn't seem as isolated anymore. So I'm going to let one of our players answer that. What do you do?
Are you referring? Okay, never mind.
We're not
Like
going to say
the
name.
validation thing, is that what you're wanting me to explain?
Say it again.
The validation.
Yeah, just what do we do when somebody is isolating and they don't want to be a part of the group? How do we get them to be a part of the group without forcing them to be a part of the group, without making it awkward for them, without whatever? How do we invite people in who don't want to be that?
Well, what we did is we just like invited her to lots of activities, and we would talk to her a lot, and we'd text her to check up with her a lot, and we'd like make sure that like the activities, like we would be willing to work around and make sure she could get there. Like we would really fight to have her there, you know, like
Yeah.
so that she would know that we really did care that she was showing up. And if she really did like need space, like sometimes she would really just isolate, and we would just kind of give her the space she needed and then try again, kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, is that what you're looking for?
No, that's great. That's great.
Okay.
I think that's what we talked about with that particular player. Hannah, do you have a comment? So you have a raised hand.
Yeah, so I agree with them, and I've had a teammate who's like excluded themselves, and they just like kind of take themselves out of the group and stuff. And so I just like make sure that I tell the group, I'm like, hey, they like exclude themselves. We just need to make them feel more welcome. She is like one of the shyer girls. And so like whenever we're all huddled and she's kind of out, I always like grab her in like playfully and like, come here, like, come on and stuff. And like, she like thanked me for it. She's like, I'm really shy. And so I'm like glad that you did that and stuff. And so I made sure that my team has been like more aware of that, because there are a lot of girls that like kind of exclude themselves or are excluded. And so I just like said that just to answer your question and stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that's amazing. So that's what I would do, is try to get everyone to include her. It's hard to not like those who like you. And if everyone generally is treating her in a way that she can tell that they genuinely like her, I think she'll open up a little bit more, at least to somebody. Because there's probably other things going on, or she might just be a shy person, or she might not feel included in a way. Remember, everybody has a specific way that they feel loved and that they want to give love, right? There's a book called The 5 Love Languages. And so we just want to try to make sure that we are helping people, receive and feel love the way that they need to. And so I would say, most of the time, connection is a big part of that. So the more you guys can all reach out and include her, I think it'll help. At least that's a good starting point. And at some point, she'll probably individually reach out to somebody or gravitate to one person, who she feels is maybe the most genuine with her. That's what I would do.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. That's a great question. Anyone else? See, now we're moving. This is good. All right, we're down to 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. I guess we got everybody's concerns out. Okay, I will be following up. You'll get the video recording, and then I want you guys to follow up with this with me, okay? And the more you are inclusive, I promise you, the more I can help and the more your teams will get to where they need to be. I'm very, very, very proud of everybody for doing the work that you've done so far. It's amazing. It makes such a huge impact in the people's lives that are around you. So keep it up. It's great. And we'll talk soon. Take care, everybody.
Hey, thank you for holding the Zoom. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, I'm sorry. That was the funniest Zoom of my life.
Oh my gosh, you guys are class.
The whole like choppy, can you hear me?
The whole what?
Like, can you hear me 17 times? I was losing it.
I couldn't hear a thing. Could you hear anything?
Well, when she first was talking, it sounded like Rice Krispie treat. But then, like, she kept asking if you could hear her, and you were like, "Yep, I can hear you." And then she asked again.
Funny.
Anyways, you're King Reed. Happy dab for you.
Thank you. You guys have a great night.
Bye, Reed.